Welcome to the Less Stressed Life podcast. This is your host, Krista Bigler, private practice integrative nutritionist, helping people across the U.S. reverse digestive issues, eczema, and autoimmunity via phone and video consult. To learn more, visit lessstressednutrition.com. Now, on to the show. Okay, today on the Less Stressed Life, we have Amy Shapiro, who is the founder and director of Real Nutrition, a New York City-based private practice dedicated to healthfully and successfully guiding clients to optimal nutrition, weight, and overall wellness. She is internationally recognized for her individualized lifestyle-focused approach, which integrates realistic food plans, smart eating habits, and active living. Through encouragement, education, and the right tricks of the trade, Amy believes that anyone can achieve their nutritional goals while still enjoying the foods and flavors they crave. Welcome, Amy.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we're talking about something super timely for this season, which is really about kind of navigating the holidays, because holidays are kind of known for their overall hangover, food hangover, other types of hangovers. So let's talk about what is the season of holidays? When does it really start where this all kind of, when all the holiday pressure and the food relationships sort of change, so to speak?
Yeah, so I really think, and I think this is earlier than most people speak to, but I think it starts right at Halloween.
I think so,
too.
That
October 31st, the candy hits the house, and then the lights, the daylight savings time hits, and it gets darker earlier. And I really think that's when people feel the switch. And then all of a sudden, the decorations in the store are focused on Thanksgiving, and then we're up and running.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I mean, this is something we think about in practice, too, because to be realistic, you don't want to set someone up for failure. So you want to fit the climate, and the climate during this season is such that there's a lot of outside temptation. So sometimes when people contact me, specifically, as you just said, kind of after Halloween, my approach on what we're going to do through those holidays is going to be 100% different than if they contact me in April or some other season, right? It's just a different time. Let's talk about your nutrition philosophy. I love that you say you're realistic. So tell me about what you're seeing in your office at this time of year, and then also post time of year, and just kind of the people that you normally see and kind of how you approach that.
Yeah, so I am based in New York City, so I see a lot of different types of people for anything from, medical issues to general wellness, weight management. And a lot of my clients are just, super busy, limited time, and they're really social, right? Or really involved, whether it be for work or for life. So my strategies sometimes that I focus on for holidays tend to be how I focus on life for most of my clients, because there's really no stopping. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of my realistic approach to how do you navigate, overindulgence or an overindulgent time, right? Where we're just going out and out and out. And so it's really, focusing on how do I set you up to walk into those events feeling confident and comfortable and not starving, and then how do I help you, exit and start the next day without feeling any guilt or deprivation or, any feelings that we don't want to have. So it's really just kind of taking in, assessing your week, taking in the day before, taking in the day after, and then the exact moment. But you can apply that to any time of the year as well.
I love it. What I just heard you say was really awareness. And
oh, yeah.
I'm going to draw kind of a bridge. Sometimes we have people come on here and we talk about breathing in different ways. Yesterday I interviewed someone about pelvic floor. We really talked about breath. And the first thing she did, you always start with awareness. And so in a similar way with nutrition, or if you have a pain in your knee or something, that started with awareness, right? And so a lot of times we kind of wait with nutrition until after the fact before we become aware. But what if we're aware beforehand? That's what I kind of heard you said in different words, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think of awareness and being prepared. I always like to say being prepared really is half the battle. So it's, but being aware and prepared, together, then you're totally complete.
Yeah, I love it. It's like a holiday mantra, aware and prepared.
Okay. Right?
Yeah.
On all levels.
Yeah. So let's get into some practical strategies, really, because this is tricky. We don't want to feel guilty about what we're doing. We don't want to feel like the odd person out. We want to have a good relationship with food, but we also want to feel good, because sometimes when we're not fueling appropriately, we just don't feel awesome. And that's kind of the crappy part. It's fun. It's great to indulge, but what if after the fact, you just don't feel like that was a great choice? So let's talk about about navigating some of those choices. One of the biggest things I see, so like endless holiday parties, but really also like the office break room. That is a challenging place.
Yeah. So, and what a lot of people bring their holiday leftovers to the office so they don't end up eating them at home, right? So that office break room can just be a conglomerate of goodies. So one of my strategies for that is, one, I usually recommend that my clients eat on a regular, meal program, in the sense of, not going longer than 3 or 4 hours between eating. So they're not letting themselves get too hungry, so that temptation isn't hitting when they're starving. But also, one thing I say to my clients is, free food is not free of calories. And then these free foods are usually foods people don't want to eat themselves, so they're coming and giving them to you, right? So I don't want to eat this, but you can eat this. So it's almost, you're kind of eating what they're purposely avoiding. So I just like to remind people of that. But then I also like to remind my clients, like, it is absolutely okay to indulge. But if you're indulging, A, it better be worth it and something that you love. And B, it really should be the best. So it hits that, if you're having a brownie, don't you want a really fresh brownie? Or do you want a brownie that's been sitting out and it's kind of hard on the edges and other people might have touched it, right? So it's kind of just bringing, again, awareness to the situation, because you're always allowed, but really, I always say, like, shouldn't it be worth it? And shouldn't you recognize that you're doing it?
Yeah, I think you're reading my mind, because that's sort of how I can be. I'm like, oh, I don't really want this brownie, but oh, you have a tahini brownie with dark chocolate? Like, I would like that one. And I would also not like, once you learn too much about the way people prepare things and stuff, sometimes I have a little bit of a fear of potlucks occasionally sometimes, because I think, oh, I'm not sure what's going on in those other people's kitchens. So sometimes not to create fear around it, but I want it to be worth it. And I don't want to, take on someone else's garbagey stuff, So you were reading my mind in different ways. Cool. But
I also feel like those tahini brownies wouldn't be left over, right?
Right, yeah. True.
Nobody's bringing the tahini brownies. They're going to bring the other brownies.
Yeah, we'd eat these at home. This brings up a good point, because when we kind of like push our stuff off on people, sometimes that's people saying, I love to bake, and some people are love to accept that with open arms. And sometimes that's really appropriate. But sometimes it's just like, well, I didn't want this, so I'm going to get rid of it. This sort of is like a play back, and it's a little bit of a teeter-totter here, because how do we support each other in having better habits as well? And this doesn't have to be it could be a rhetorical question. But what I hear there is like, oh, we're kind of saying, hey, I want to give this to someone else, but really we can be the supportive person. So if someone else is struggling, we can also, if we're also trying to create healthy habits, like, I don't know if this is making sense, but it was something that was going through my mind as you were talking. How do we support each other through this? Okay.
And I do find that there's a lot of support in office spaces, because usually you're not the only one who is kind of in this mindset. And so just, as well as I do, that people like to indulge in company, right? But people also, we know that successful health programs are when people feel supported and are often done in groups and have that network.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's 100%, 1,000,000% true. I love it. So what are other times during the holidays that people run into trouble or run into challenges?
So I think that one is, getting prepared for all the gifts and all the shopping and feeling all of that stress. So I think that, that's a time when people also don't feel their best, which is something you alluded to earlier. So they're not feeling what we were talking about before was they're not feeling their best because they maybe overate or overindulged. But also when you're really stressed and you're trying to get 1,000 things done, sometimes you forget to eat, and then you feel really cranky and grumpy and your head hurts. And then you might be in the mall and go to that food court, or you might grab the first thing that you see. So, those are other times where I feel like people don't recognize that they're setting themselves up to not feel optimal, where they could be nourishing themselves. And that's the point where I tell my clients, always pack a snack in your bag. I don't care how busy you are, have something in your car, have something on your person that you can eat so you can feel better and stay focused, because that stress and exhaustion can really get to you if you're not, hydrating, if you're not prepared. So that's another piece I like to cover.
Yeah. There's no worse thing than shopping hangry, right?
There's no worse thing than being stressed hangry, right? So I think that's one piece, just talking about not the consumption piece, going the other angle that people don't usually think about when they're hearing, dietitians speak about food and health and wellness is, that piece too.
Right. Okay, so we're covering office parties or office break rooms, the stress around shopping and kind of not being prepared around that. And the solutions are really not to get hungry, to make sure we're eating kind of at even spaces, which is a good tool all times of the year, but sometimes falls apart when things get more busy, more stress, right, and more running, and making
Yep.
things really worth it. So, all right, let's talk about some other areas that people sometimes have trouble. So let's say we have to go to like 4 Thanksgivings to appease all the sides of the family. Are there ways? Are there ways to make that whole process more enjoyable, or do you have suggestions about the actual day of the feast?
Yep. So absolutely. So I always say one is, it's Thanksgiving always happens on a Thursday. So take that week and kind of look at the course of that week. This is a really good opportunity to make sure that you're eating home or doing some cooking or eating, quote unquote, a little bit cleaner. So, a lot of plant-based foods and, foods that are in your control, maybe Monday through Wednesday, right? Those are your days that are completely in your control most of the time, unless you're traveling. But, it's not your blowout day. And then I always say, on Thanksgiving, whatever time it starts, never show up starving. Like, that old philosophy of I'm going to save my calories for this huge meal. It never works, right? So I always say fuel up in a really positive way beforehand, have breakfast, don't show up hungry. And then just like, any other holiday party, assess the situation before you dive in head first. So if there are appetizers out, do you really need chips and dip when you're going to be enjoying stuffing and cornbread? Probably not. So maybe lean towards the crudités or have a few chips and then walk away because you don't want to fill up before the meal. And then I always say, look at what's available. What speaks to you for Thanksgiving? What is absolutely something that you look forward to? If white bread rolls or crescent rolls are just like not your favorite thing, but you take it because it's there, skip it, right? Don't you want to have maybe your pumpkin pie or your stuffing or more turkey? So I always say, what is really special about the holiday that you don't eat most other times of the year, and enjoy that and indulge, but also start off by filling half your plate with vegetables. Mm-hmm. So I feel like those are some basic strategies that anybody can apply. But then my last piece of advice is always, holidays last one day, right? So that doesn't mean that Friday and Saturday and Sunday of that holiday gets to be indulged in as decadently as Thursday, right? Sure, eat leftovers, but in a little bit more of a managed way.
Mm-hmm. I
love oftentimes
starting
on Thursday means everybody's like, oh, I'll wait till Monday. Mm-hmm. But if you just start again on Friday, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a holiday. Holidays are celebratory.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And there's the other piece too, that like the holiday is a time to be away from work and to relax and to de-stress in that other way. And sometimes just that filling of that cup is such an important piece that I feel like people are missing so often, and kind of sitting down and like binge watching the Christmas shows with your kids or whatever it is. Like that's that can be such a positive thing to do, like something you don't get to do, right? Sometimes because everything is such hustle and bustle, and like everyone gets to take this time off mostly, right?
Right.
So just trying to like celebrate like the people that you're with, instead of, and I love the food, absolutely love the food, but sometimes we forget about the other pieces, I guess.
Right. Well, when we talk about wellness, people always look at food and exercise, but you forget about the social aspect and the family aspect and the not being stressed aspect, right? Those are really important in our overall wellness. So I think that that's a really good point to point out.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so some other areas, we've talked about the office piece, we talked about the day of. How about, let's see, you mentioned kind of before we got going some things about cocktails, or like you have something called the 3 C's. You want to tell us about that?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. So, obviously during this time, people tend to go to parties more and they drink a little bit more alcohol than they usually do. And I find that a lot of my clients drink. I have the cocktail conversation all throughout the year with them. So I just try and I don't want to tell anyone to abstain if they don't want to during the holiday season. So I try and help them make a better choice. So a few of the things that I like to point out are cleaner cocktails. So, wine can be very easily consumed because people are either refilling your glass with the same wine bottle that everybody else is drinking, so you don't really know how much you're having. And people of drinking age, if they've been drinking for a few years, can drink a good amount of wine and not feel like they've been hit by a truck. So I always say, let's be cognizant about what you're drinking. So I tend to recommend cleaner cocktails as in liquor. So vodka, tequila, gin, things like that, because the the calories are so much lower and the sugar content is a lot less. So I'd like to recommend those mixed with, say, club soda and some fresh lemon or lime, because this way, you can get more bang for your buck. And then another thing that I like to recommend is, obviously we want to hydrate in between cocktails. But then I always like to point out that alcohol is, it's non-nutritive calories, right? So it does contain calories, but there are no nutrients that come with it. And these are calories that we tend to not count. So if you go out to dinner and you're trying to eat really clean and you eat some fish and you order vegetables and then you drink 3 glasses of wine and then you might have a few bites of dessert, you're not counting those calories as part of your healthy meal, right? So I like to say there are calories that we don't count, but we should be cognizant. So this takes me to the 3 C's, where anytime you're indulging, be it out to dinner or going to a cocktail party, I want you to choose one. And so my 3 C's are carbs, cake, or cocktails, right? So these are the things that people don't usually include in their meal, but they still consume. So the bread basket, the dessert that their friend ordered that they didn't plan on, a few bites of their friend's pasta. So I always say you don't ever want to feel deprived because that just stinks. So you want to pick one area, 1 C, and leave the others for another day. So pick your carbs, pick your cake, or pick your cocktail, but indulge in one. Feel confident that you got to make the choice of what you want to indulge in. And then, tomorrow you can have dessert. Mm-hmm. So it's just being aware of where those non-nutritive calories come in that affect how we feel at the end of the meal and the next day. Because by choosing 1 out of 3, you feel a lot better. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I like how you quantified those 3 C's, the carbs, cocktails, and cake, and you just gave people a tool to say, pick one. So you're definitely enjoying, but if you do all 3, you might end up with a little bit more of a different kinds of hangovers than you would want, right? So picking one allows you to kind of balance things out without thinking about deprivation. It's like, oh, today I'm going to do this, tomorrow I'm going to do that, because that allows you to enjoy it while not feeling like you have to unbutton your pants for the rest of the weekend. So
yes, that is and it's not to say if you go to a fantastic Italian restaurant that you can't have pasta and a glass of wine, but that's where I say you can't have 3 glasses of wine and the pasta, right? Mm-hmm. Like you're really picking where you want to enjoy yourself, and that goes back to what we said in the beginning, like it should just really be worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's say I've gone ahead and forgotten to prepare and just kind of mindlessly ate my way through Thanksgiving because I love it so much. And I am a little uncomfortable post the hours of indulging. Like, what does that look like? Like, let's say this is past or someone's listening to this retrospectively. Like, okay, holidays past now. I don't feel awesome. Like, what are your tips for recovery?
So for recovery, my first tip is always hydration, right? So a lot of times we're feeling pretty bummed out because we're really dehydrated. Most people don't remember to hydrate through the holiday seasons or ever in general. So I always say start your day with a nice big glass of water. We are dietitians, so of course I'm going to squeeze half of a lemon in there. So I think that that's great. And sometimes I get a little woo-woo, and if people are really trying to, come off of the alcohol, I'll say put some dandelion in there. It's a really nice way to support your liver and all of that good stuff. So that's one thing I always remind people to do. And the other thing that I tell people to do is either go back to what you were doing before, right? Just get right back on track. And if you don't associate guilt, then you really don't have that guilt hangover of, trying to kind of, make yourself feel bad. But I always say focus on getting in lots of plants, so fruits and veggies at every meal, at least half your plate, because those are not only hydrating, but they're lower in calories, they're void of saturated fats, they're high in fiber, so they get our digestion working again. And then I just say keep it, clean and light. So clean proteins if you eat animal protein, beans and legumes if you don't eat animal protein, and keeping the white carbs or the desserts and the processed foods kind of at a bare minimum. So, eating balanced meals about every 3 to 4 hours, bringing a healthy snack. But I always say focus on whole foods. So bring an apple, bring a pear, whatever is seasonal to where you're located. So you're really focusing on whole foods, clean foods that don't have any additives. And even if you just do that for a week or two, and let's not forget sleep and sweat. We want to sweat. A week or two, you're going to feel right back on track. Mm-hmm. But then, to keep in mind, like, hey, there might be 1 or 2 nights where I do, go out or go to another, event. great. But you follow those rules that we talked about the last time, right? The 3 C's and all the things that keep you on track. So I just say try and focus on whole foods, hydration, sweating a little bit, and I think that gets you right back where you need to be.
Yeah. And those are good tips for all times of the year. And I think something that the holidays can do, depending on how we're spacing things or snacking on things, is it can kind of launch you into a little bit of a blood sugar roller coaster. And when that happens, you are suddenly hungry for all the things all the time. Or sometimes we get to talk to people in January, February, whatever, and they're like, well, kind of after the holidays, things really started unraveling. I actually got a personal experience where my eczema flared back up after years of not really having an issue after the holidays. I was like, oh yeah, maybe there's some underlying factors there, but a little flare from that. So, but you can have this little blood sugar roller coaster that makes you want to not probably stop eating a little bit or have some cravings. I was getting a little snarky with my husband last night, who said, I'm craving, I'm hungry all the time. And I said to him, have you been eating a protein, fat, and carb every few hours? And he said, no. And I'm like, go do that first, then come back and talk to me. But I could do that.
That works.
Yeah. Cause I know how he's been eating. He's been kind of not showing up for lunch and whatever. So I know how he's eating. I'm like, you can't out supplement your diet. So go ahead and eat protein, fat, and carb every 4 to 5 hours. And then we can talk about this because, he's always looking for a little quick fix.
That blood sugar.
Totally. And I will just mention, at this age, I am a fan of the liver support, pre and post alcohol at this age. They sell these products and I think they sell them because a lot of them work. So supporting things can minimize that little hangover. I mean, I'm not saying go buy something, but I think it's okay to support our body's natural functions when we're putting a little more stress on it than we normally do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wouldn't say, I like the dandelion for that. You want to support your organs that naturally detoxify you, and that's where the hydration, right? And the little things that people can be into. I love tea when I'm trying to clean things up for myself. Tea at night, so it's sometimes hibiscus because it's a diuretic and it's high in antioxidants, or sometimes dandelion, if I've over imbibed, for after a few parties. So I think that, we can't negate the power of herbs and spices as well to support our body's natural functions.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up, because how you sometimes, people don't necessarily realize this, but after kind of our indulgence, we can feel more tired. That is a sign of low grade inflammation kind of just slightly cropping up, and you can feel more fatigued. And our usual response to that is to drink more caffeine. And tea can be caffeinated too, and that's fine. But that's definitely a thing, and it kind of gets us into this cycle. So I always remind people hey, pay attention to how coffee makes you feel. I mean, I'm a fan of coffee, but sometimes we get really reliant on it. So it's fun to kind of back up and see how we do. I talk to people about this all the time, and sometimes people will stop for a while and re-add it and realize, oh my gosh, this is really making me feel really buzzy and shaking, and I didn't realize it before. And so, I mean, we're all looking for that warm cup of something, and that's great, but packing tea bags, and there's so many amazing teas and herbal teas that have so many benefits, that doing a 2-to-1 ratio tea to coffee, if someone's willing to do it, is sort of one of my recommendations that I do as well sometimes for that reason.
I love that. I love it. Yeah. I'm a big tea fan and a big coffee fan, so I'm right on your 2-to-1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Amy, let's, if we were going to leave people with one gut reaction of, hey, we're in this season, what can we do today to feel better and to live our best life? What would that be?
Be prepared. I always say never leave your house without a healthy snack on your person, be it in your briefcase, in your pocket, in your purse, in your diaper bag, because you never know when you're going to need it. And if you need it, that's really a lifesaver. So it'll prevent you from, low blood sugar crash, but it'll also prevent you from possibly overeating or eating things that you never planned to eat because you were so desperate and so hungry. Mm-hmm. So that's really one of my big sayings is being prepared is half the battle. If you have it on your person, so much temptation will, fall away, because you don't need it.
Yeah. And even though that's a great place to stop, I'm going to share a personal awareness that I had over the last couple of weeks. I'm on a deadline. And so sometimes when you're on this deadline, I'm like, have not showered, have not exercised, like have not eaten appropriately. And so I spent kind of a day doing all this food and meal prep and whatnot, and went into the week like a rock star after like many weeks of non-rock star status. And it just reduced so much stress, and like I had such better energy because I was really kind of annoyed with my energy post a trip and then with the deadline and whatnot. And I was just trying to observe like what's the issue here? I think I'm not fueling appropriately, didn't get appropriate sleep, like all these things, right? So I went into recovery mode as we talked about, and then kind of prepared for the following week. So I had protein, fat, and carb, at regular intervals. And like yesterday I said, this is the best I've felt in like 2 weeks now that I'm back on track. And so I just wanted to share that we all struggle with this, and it's okay. Like sometimes you fall off of things, but you're looking for something that you could sustainably do. And eating at regular intervals and all the tips that Amy shared apply to all times of the year.
Yep, I agree 100%. Sometimes I think that meal planning also saves a lot of brain space. Mm-hmm. Like if you don't have a snack on your person, you're walking through, a shopping mall or something, and you're trying to find something healthy, it adds a lot of stress. Or you're on a deadline and you're trying to think, what should I order, or what should I cook? So meal planning takes the stress away too, which is really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I have to mention, I used to not enjoy meal planning at all because it's not in my like nature to want to do that, but you have to find the right thing that works for you. And when I finally figured out a system that was like, oh, just prepare, this type of protein and this type of whole grain carb, and then we're like swapping it in and making these different meals for the week. I mean, whatever it is that you like, I always recommend people don't try to overdo it if you're just getting started, because it can feel daunting. But sometimes it's just like, sometimes if something is a good fit, but you just haven't found the right fit for you, right? Like it's a good thing, but you haven't found the right fit for you. Just keep experimenting. It's okay. Like that's how it is with all kinds of things. I hated exercise most of my life until I found the right fit, and that can happen with all areas. So I appreciate what you said there, definitely about reducing the stress and opening up that brain space. And if people feel like they have failed at it before, it doesn't mean that you will fail at it in the future. You just maybe haven't found the right fit, and that's okay. That is life. That is what we do. We like continue to find what works best for us.
Yep.
Amy, where can people find you?
So my website is realnutritionnyc.com, and I'm mostly on Instagram at realnutrition, and those are pretty much where I can be found.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing about this today. Go check out Amy at realnutritionnyc.com and over on her Instagram page, and thank you for all the tips.
Thanks so much. It was so great talking to you.
This holiday season, I would love to feature you on the Less Stress Life podcast. So how do you do it? I want to hear your favorite holiday pastimes, whether that has something to do with decorating your tree or a tradition that your family does every year, or just like your favorite grandma's cookies or something that is really reminiscent or it makes you think of the holiday season and spirit. We'd love to hear it. So all you have to do is open up your voice memo app on your phone or bounce over to lessstresslife.com. Along the side, there's a little widget called SpeakPipe. And if you just click on it and hit the record button from your computer or your phone, or you can do it from your voice memo on your phone and then email it over to hello@lessstresslife. If you're on SpeakPipe, it'll do it automatically when you stop the record button. Just record a little short thing. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and what your favorite holiday thing is. We would love to insert it on some future podcasts over the holiday season. We'd love to have that in by the end of November if you can do that now. And for those that do participate in that, I'm going to put you in a drawing. So make sure you send an email over to hello@lessstresslife.com to let me know that you've submitted your entry to add that to the podcast over the next month. We'll use that collection of email addresses and select a little goodie basket for you for Christmas out of those people that participate. So anyway, hello@lessstresslife.com. Send over an entry that says you've done that. You can go to lessstresslife.com and record a little thing on SpeakPipe, or you can open your voice memos and email it over to us. Either way is totally fine, but as long as we've got your email address, we can enter you in that drawing. You don't have to enter the drawing. You don't have to email us. You can just share your little 15 or 20-second thing that you love about the holiday season, and we'd love to feature you this season. Hope to hear from you soon.
One of the best gifts you could give us at the Less Stress Life is your feedback. We are paid in podcast reviews. If you enjoyed this or any other episode, please leave us a review. In the iTunes store or from your podcast app, just search for Less Stress Life as if you're not already subscribed. Click on the banana face image, scroll to the bottom where it shows the text of other reviews, and write a review. While you're there, hey, make sure you hit subscribe. For Android or Stitcher users, you gotta go to the desktop site and search for Less Stress Life, and then scroll down to leave a review. Stitcher doesn't load Apple reviews on their site, so if you want, you can leave a review in both places. Your feedback means a lot to the success of the show. Thanks so much for taking the time to do that. You rock.